So we should start this with an old. We're going to do ending stories, so you might as well start with a really old one.
Yeah.
This one goes back about 66 million years, long time ago.
Indeed, and this is in terms of the ending stories we could pick. This is a big one.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a mystery.
Kind of a puzzle, yeah. It involves dinosaurs, so I think just to set the mood for people here, we should think of dinosaur-like words to describe a dinosaur.
Yeah, well, when I think of a dinosaur, I see a creature that is powerful.
Powerful is good, of course. You might want to refer to the scaliness of the dinosaur.
Yeah, scaly.
Feathery, by the way. Because,
Indeed.
Yes, they had feathers.
Toothy.
Toothy and massive.
Yes. Majestic.
Well, particularly majestic, because dinosaurs were around for 200 million years, dominated the Earth 1,000 times longer than us.
And then all of a sudden, the dinosaurs just went away.
Yeah.
And that's the mystery. Like, what happened to them? Where'd they go? How'd they go? People have been debating this forever.
Dinosaur extinction has been an issue as long as we've known about dinosaurs.
Yeah, I mean, like, you get one theory, then another theory, then another theory, and it would be so much easier for the scientists, and for you and I right now, frankly, if we could just ask somebody who was there, an eyewitness.
Well, you can't go back in time.
No.
No. So that's not happening.
Alas.
Well, this is convenient. If it's real, I don't know whether it's. Let me just see if it. It is real.
Real?
I think it is.
Well, wait, hey. Why don't you ask him what we should talk about? I mean, we have all these theories here. See which one he thinks is worth talking about.
That's a great idea. Maybe you should do it, because I think you might find it interesting.
No, I mean, this is your thing, man. You know about this stuff.
It's not my thing. I think it is much as your thing as it is my thing.
Well, you're older. You ask him.
Older is not. You don't put an older I don't want to.
Just ask him.
Hello? I don't speak dinosaur. I don't have the words. It just growls all the time, and I don't know what it's saying.
Well, if you
don't know what it's saying, you can't.
It's not. We just need to know how to talk to it.
I don't know how to talk to it.
Does anyone here know how to speak to this thing?
It's a
Excuse me?
reptile.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. I speak dinosaur.
You do? How did you learn dinosaur?
Oh, I went to Evergreen. I majored in dinosaurs and paper clips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good boy. You're a good boy.
All right. Well,
Listen, we have all these theories.
Yeah.
If we ask him about it, can you translate for us?
Yeah, is that okay? Okay, yeah, he says coolio.
Okay.
He's a little behind on slang. All right.
Okay. So, what do we call it?
Oh, it's Raoul. It's Raoul. It's a very long O.
Raoul.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
Okay.
Maybe start with this
I'll
one
start
right
with
here.
this one. Okay. Raoul. Are you familiar with Pravitz and Connery's article in Paleobiology called Volcanic Eruptions and Cretaceous Lava Emulsions, which suggests that your species and all the dinosaurs were made extinct by enormous volcanoes exploding together?
He said he stopped paying attention about midway through to that. But he did hear volcanoes and no way to volcanoes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, okay.
Well, no,
All right.
do this one here.
Sure. Okay. Raoul. Here's another theory. This was big in 1980. It goes like this. So you and your kind spent too much time in the sun. You got cataracts. You couldn't see where you're going. You began to run off cliffs.
He basically said, quite frank. Oh, he's got a lot to say. He said, quite frankly, Jad, he's insulted that someone with your brain size would even think that was possible.
Well, then do the big one here. This
Okay.
Because this is the one, you know.
All right. Raul, look at me over here.
He was looking at you. He's got eyes on the side of his head.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Okay. What about an asteroid?
Oh, it's okay, girl. Oh, calm down. Oh, she's very scared. She says, okay, yes, that's true, but it's not the way you think it happened. Wait, girl, wait.
Suddenly it's a girl, Raul. I don't understand that. But still, that's interesting. We're right, but it's not the way we thought it happened.
Okay, so we all think we know this story, right? The story of the asteroid that hit the Earth 66 million years ago.
You learned it in grade school.
Well, it turns out there are some scientists, we were surprised to learn, there are scientists who have been investigating this moment further, forensically probing this moment, and they have a crazy new theory as to what actually went down that day.
Actually, this theory is so odd, and when we first encountered it, we thought it was so unlikely that we basically threw it out for a while.
Didn't seem possible.
But then when we looked at the details, strangely, the details suddenly became kind of plausible. So
we want to run you through what we've learned, just to see what you think.
okay, so we're gonna do that right now.
Let's do it. Okay, we're gonna start you off with the guy who started it off for us. It's a guy named Jay.
Jay Malash, professor at Purdue University, and I study impact craters, among other things.
Not only can Jay Malash create impact craters with his mind, but he and his colleagues have been investigating this moment almost as if it were a crime scene that happened not 60 some odd million years ago, but yesterday. And the story that they've put together, it's more than just interesting. It's frankly terrifying. And weirdly specific, as it happens. Take, for example, the seemingly simple question of when. When did it happen?
You don't mean like the year, 'cause that would be a little too specific.
No, I don't know if you remember, but Jay got even more specific than that. This was a casual question that I threw out. When did you think it happened, thereabouts? Listen to his answer. Here's my question.
By the way, do we know anything about seasons? Was this a particularly warm?
Actually, it was between, this is a bit of a stretch, but it was sometime between June and July.
Really?
Oh, you could say that
And-
so specifically?
How would you know that?
The reasoning is we can, for example,
This was the first surprise. It's kind of a controversial idea, but it basically goes like this. Jay says scientists have found some pollen in rocks which date from that time. Two different kinds of pollen. This is pollen right here. And based on an analysis of those two kinds of pollen,
we know that the impact took place between the flowering of the lotus and the flowering of the water lilies.
Whoa. Okay, so that's a lotus you see flowering on the left. It's a water lily flowering on the right. Fossils found at the impact site that had pollen from both of these flowers in the same rock would suggest that the impact did in fact take place
Somewhere between June and July. It's one of those things in geology, we get a glimpse of a moment far, far back in time.
so let's go deeper into that moment. All right, everybody, let's collectively rewind our minds back in time, tens of millions of years into the past, 66 million years ago, to be precise. There they are, majestic beasts, hanging out on the plains, eating their lotus leaves. Sometime in June 17th, let's say. And everything on this day,
Pretty much normal. This particular fateful day was no different than any of millions and millions of previous days as far as the dinosaurs were concerned. But if there were any astronomers at the time, which there weren't, they might have had some inkling that something was coming because
had they looked up,
they would have seen
a tiny little,
dot of light in the sky.
and it was there day after day, always in the same spot at roughly the same time of day.
Whereas planets, the moon, move with respect to the stars. This would have had a constant bearing. And the old seaman could tell you that if you see something constant bearing, that's on a collision course with you.
And that thing, of course, is our asteroid.
Zeroing in on the Earth.
Actually, it seems to me maybe you oughtn't stick around for this next section because you're not going to find it that pleasing and it might make you nervous. So if you go there, I'll say some stuff to them about this asteroid because we know a thing or two about it from the size of the crater and from the amount of certain minerals found at the impact site. We know that the asteroid was roughly 6 miles wide and then again roughly 6 miles long, which makes it approximately the size of Manhattan Island. Or viewed another way, you could say...
Or Mount Everest. It's roughly the size of Mount Everest.
That is Doug Robertson, a geologist who knows quite a bit about this asteroid.
And by the way, it has a name. It's the asteroid. It's called Baptistina.
Baptistima.
Why?
That's Baptistina. It's Baptistina. I don't know.
Oh.
They name asteroids. On another subject, we do know that the Earth's moon was probably produced by a collision with something the size of Mars.
Whoa. I just threw that in because it's cool. It doesn't really relate to our story.
We don't have the whole evening here. Let's just stay to it, okay? In any case, the dinosaurs are here on Earth. They're eating their leaves. Meanwhile, up in space, our asteroid Baptistina is now hurtling towards the Earth.
20,000 miles an hour.
Very fast.
20 times faster than a very fast rifle bullet.
And scientists couldn't be sure what would happen, mathematically, when a Mount Everest-sized bullet traveling at 20,000 miles an hour hits our atmosphere.
The atmosphere is really just a very, very thin skin over the rest of the Earth.
And it's a skin made of gas.
So, scientists thought, all right, if we're going to construct this story, let's just take it piece by piece and first figure out what would happen when this big ball hurling through space slams into our atmosphere, which is made of gas, of course. So just to approximate, let's fire a bullet through some gas and watch what happens. So that's what you're about to see, although not quite. This is actually a gun that's going to fire a bullet through some water instead of gas, but it's going to make the point we want to make just fine. So here's what you see. When you pull the trigger, Keith, if you would, you see the bullet coming out and freeze it right there at the edge, okay? Basically what you see is this bullet steaming through the water, creating a wake behind it, and the wake gets wider and wider as it trails away from the bullet. And if you imagine this shape in 3 dimensions, really what you're looking at is a kind of a cone, like a funnel shape. And inside the walls of the funnel, inside that cone, is nothing.
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 Well, because it's in water, so you're saying it's like a hole in the water.
That's what I'm saying. There's nothing in there. It's a vacuum in there because the bullet is shooting through the water. It pushes the water out of the way, and for a beat, the water doesn't have time to come back together, and so all you have is emptiness in there. Right. And that creates a kind of an interesting visual situation, which I'll talk about in a second. But just since we have it here, this video here, and we never really get to look at stuff on the radio.
That's true.
Let's just play it forward, Keith, if you don't mind. Let's just look at it for a second, because it's really cool. Look what happens. The thing expands, and then the vacuum, thump, collapses, and then it bounces back and expands again, and then pow.
Does this have anything to do with our subject? I'm just asking.
No, technically no.
No, you can't.
All right, so
to...
just rewind it back if you would. Okay, fine. So right there, simple point is this. Right there, what you're seeing is a massive hole in the water created by a tiny little bullet. Now imagine that bullet is 6 miles wide, and the hole that it's making is right above your head.
Well, what does that mean if you're a dinosaur looking up? What would happen?
Well, if you were in the right place, and this is going to be the wrong place in a second or two, but if you were in the right place to look behind the asteroid as it came in, you'd probably be able to see clearly through the space.
What? Does that mean you would suddenly be looking at a nighttime hole in a daytime sky?
Right.
Whoa.
So this is Keith's in the moment approximation. To be fair, Jay did tell us that you would need special kinds of eyeballs to see this night hole in the day sky, which the dinos did not have. But whatever. Science! I mean, still, just imagine, like, what a last image that would be to see day and night come together in the same moment. But, according to Jay...
You better not blink because before you could open your eyes again, the asteroid would have hit the surface. And if you're in a position to see that, then you're going to be engulfed by the violence that is just about to occur.
So we know it was a big explosion, fine. That it was violent, fine. But I think we should be a little bit subtle about this, because obviously if an asteroid is the size of Manhattan and it lands on your head, you're not going to feel very good about that. But if Manhattan is hitting the planet Earth, that's a little bit like a pebble hitting an enormous beach ball, right? So
Yeah, and I can imagine that the little pebble size, relativistically speaking, the pebble would create some damage in the spot where it landed.
Right, but let's suppose that you are a leaf-eating mother-of-three hadrosaur living in New Zealand, right? And you're just at the moment that the asteroid comes in, you're antipodal. You're on the other side of the planet. Okay, would you have any idea that this was happening?
Well, that was the next question that we took to Jay. How much damage would this thing actually do?
Well, we can do experiments. We can produce situations like this in small quantities in the laboratories.
Okay, you all set in there?
Which brings us
We're good to hear. You good?
to this guy.
Peter Schultz, and I like to do impact experiments.
Pete Schultz basically has every 13-year-old's dream job. He gets to blow shit up for a living. Basically what Pete does is he works at this place you're seeing. This is the NASA Ames laboratory in California, where they get to work. You see them putting it together here. They get to work with a giant 3-story tall cannon.
So what Pete does is he takes projectiles. So for example, you're going to see him take a little glass bullet over there, and he's going to load it into the top of the cannon, and then he's going to fire it right into a stand-up for planet Earth, which for him will be a sand pit.
And lucky for us, when we called Pete, he was just about to pull the trigger on this thing.
So we're calling you on a day in which you are trying to re-experience the day?
Actually, yeah, but I think we're going to survive. That's our plan.
Gated and reset.
Okay, hold on. We gotta assume the position. We have to cross our fingers.
Okay, here we go. We got it.
Here we go. Here we go.
Is good. We have all of our ready lights. Paddles in. Here we go. Rolling.
Oh, good. That is gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Are they going to, you have to get instant playback?
What just happened?
Oh my gosh.
That is the sound of a man very happy with his explosion.
You can see every piece of this, of what's happening.
So based on experiments like this, people like Pete can figure out precisely what happened when the asteroid hit the Earth. They can quantify the explosion's power by basically leveraging up experiments like this. So according to Doug, the amount of energy that would have been unleashed when that thing came rushing in onto Earth is roughly this.
It would hit the Earth with an explosion that's 100 million megatons.
Sarah Lipstate. Don't look at her wrong or she'll do that to you. Okay, so here's essentially how Doug broke that down for us. 2 tons of TNT, we're talking tons here, not megatons. 2 tons of TNT will essentially do this. 2 tons of TNT will take down a building. Now, 15,000 tons of TNT, that is what the United States dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. That chaos is 15,000 tons of TNT. Now, these days, according to Doug Robertson, a hydrogen bomb.
What does that even mean?
Current hydrogen bombs are typically of the order of 1 million tons of TNT equivalent.
Now, 1 million tons of TNT equivalent, that's what we call a megaton. And if you remember, Doug said that the asteroid impact was the equivalent of 100 million megatons. So really what he's saying in concrete terms is that that impact was the equivalent of 100 million of those bombs going off all at once in the same spot.
Which is a lot.
That is true. That is true. However, it really depends on what you mean by a lot. Because I was doing a little Googling, and I was surprised to learn that 110 million megatons is not nearly enough to destroy the planet. To destroy the entire planet, you would need, you ready for this? 110 quadrillion megatons of TNT, which is 100 million times 110 million megatons of TNT. So going back to your hadrosaur situation, mother of three in New Zealand, if the thing came in antipodal to her in Mexico, maybe she would feel the ground shake a little bit, but after a minute she'd be like, whatever, and she'd go back to eating leaves. She probably wouldn't notice it.
No, because that's not what we were taught in homeroom by Mrs. McGrew, or whoever your teacher was. Here's the classic explanation. This is what we were told. There was an impact, of course, and it kicked up an enormous amount of dust. You'll remember this. The dust then kind of covers the planet. It blankets the Earth, makes the Earth very cold, makes the Earth very nasty. All the big plants die, the little plants get sick, the dinosaurs get hungry, the dinosaurs get sick, and then gradually, they get dead. This takes a long time, and so they have the sneezes, the influenza, the falling off the cliffs, and then they have 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 100,000 years later, you have fewer, and then like a million years later, you get the last one. And then, and it's all cold and slow.
And so you're saying that the classic explanation is it was a slow, wintry, dreary end. Like that, yeah. I do remember that from homeroom. Yeah. But no. Why would we tell these good people that tired old tale? Let's actually flip the understanding completely.
I think we should.
Based on new science. So, all right, here's what we're going to do. Keith, if you would, rewind, take that ballistics video with the pink sand that we showed earlier from Pete Schultz's lab. Let's blow that up here, and then rewind all the way back. Yes, wait, back a little bit more. Back to the beginning. Okay, there we go. So this is a 6,000 frame a second video that Pete shot in his lab. Now, in the first few frames, you see the laser slamming into the sand, and then the next thing, you see a big flash, and then advance it. There you go. You see some fire. Now, Pete and people like him can measure the temperature at that little spot right there, that bulb of fire right near the impact. Yes, that right there. They can measure the temperature of that spot. And just to state the obvious, we know from those measurements at that spot, it would have gotten very, 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 very hot.
Way beyond the temperature of the sun. I mean, we're talking temperatures maybe 20,000 degrees. Whoa. The sun's temperature's about 5,000 degrees.
And if we're talking temperatures 4 times hotter than the sun, well, anything that's that hot is going to instantly turn to
gas.
A very, very high temperature, high pressure gas.
It's actually rock vapor, rock steam.
So imagine, this thing comes barreling in, this asteroid. It doesn't just bounce off the Earth, it plows into the Earth. It goes into the surface, 2 miles in, 5 miles in, 7 miles in, 10 miles in, 20 miles into the Earth it goes. All the rock that it's plowing into is turning into a liquid and then into a gas. And now, watch what happens next. This is a basic physics experiment we're gonna show you. We turned it on its side. This is just a dude dropping a ball in some sand. Watch this right here.
Does this always happen, this whatever this is?
It's like Newton's law of something.
Yeah.
Newton's law of sand,
Okay.
we'll say. No, but what you see is this bounce back effect, this little plume, this fine plume of sand goes shooting back in the opposite direction as a sort of rebound, right? Now imagine that ball is an asteroid, and that sand over there, that's the planet Earth. So Keith, play that one more time. Thank you for those sounds. So you would get the same effect. You would get the... The simple point is...
It's just something we do.
You wonder where we get all of our sound design? It's out of that man's mouth. That's where. So you would get that same bounce back effect of a fine plume shooting back in the opposite direction. But we know from what we just heard Doug describe that it would not be sand in this case. It would be rock gas.
This plume of hot gas expands upward and pushes right on through the atmosphere. up into space.
Some fraction hit the moon.
Really? Kidding.
Some fraction of that hit Mars.
Okay, so now you got this sneeze of rock vapor, it's out in space. Basic physics says that as it travels out farther away from the Earth, what's gonna happen is it's gonna go from hot to, it's gonna start to cool down a bit. And when it cools,
It recondenses into little droplets that basically form glass very quickly. Little droplets of glass about the size of sand.
now if you look at one of these little droplets of glass under a microscope, this is what it looks like right there. That is actually a magnified image of one of these bits of glass that fell from space that day. Most of them didn't land on the ground. I'll talk about that in a second. But there it is. I don't know about you, but I find that totally terrifying. Because it looks like a little Baptistina, right? Tiny little asteroid. Except now imagine trillions of these things in a cloud of shrapnel, going out, away from the Earth. And what's going to happen next is that it's going to start to lose momentum, that cloud. And when it does, the Earth's gravity is going to grab back hold of it and say, come on back.
And 90% of them come back to the Earth.
Well, does falling glass do harm?
Yes.
Because what happens is that the glass out in space starts to spread out like north and south and east and west, and eventually it will appear in the sky over New Zealand. So that hadrosaur will be seeing.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's now a global phenomenon. And it's really hard to imagine what the hadrosaur would have seen. But the thing to keep in mind is that these things, as they're coming in, these bits of glass, 90-some-odd% are burning up in the atmosphere. So very few of them are hitting the ground. So from her point of view, probably would have looked like the greatest meteor shower anyone has ever seen. With one significant bummer, which is this. When these little bits of glass come in, each one that burns up is depositing a little bit of heat into the sky. And collectively, there's such a massive rain of these things coming in, well,
The heat would build up. The sky would turn red. It would be getting hotter and hotter.
and at a certain point, Jay wondered, well, how hot exactly would it have gotten? Like, how much heat exactly would have built up there in the sky and then started to radiate down?
We calculated the amount of heat that would come down. A number, 10 kilowatts per square meter. And yeah, okay, well, we get this number. Well, what does that mean? Well, I went home and I hooked up a current meter and tried to measure the amount of heat produced in my oven for different amounts of power. And I could get about 7 kilowatts per square meter in my oven on broil. And
Like 500 degrees broil, you mean?
But that wasn't quite enough.
Not nearly. So Jay started measuring other kinds of ovens.
And I finally found out that the heat would be, in fact, like being in a pizza oven. A pizza oven is about right.
Which means that if you were a terrestrial dinosaur anywhere above the ground on the Earth on that day, you would have experienced some heat that is almost unimaginable. Maybe it started at 100 degrees because it was June, it was summer, but within minutes it would have been 300 degrees, 500 degrees, 700 degrees, 900 degrees. Estimates are on that day, temperatures topped out at something like 1,200 degrees. At that temperature, nothing can protect you. Your scales, your fur, whatever you got, it's not gonna do any good. Your blood will literally start to boil inside your body, and you will die. So essentially, according to this theory, the dinosaurs and everything else on Earth that day would have been incinerated. Doug thinks that's what did them in, not so much the impact, but all that ejecta that went up into the sky, came down as glass rain, and created that heat. That's what did them in. And he would argue it didn't just do some of them in, or even many of them in. He would say it did all of them in, all at once.
There is zero evidence that any dinosaur made it through.
And the crazy part of this theory is that Jay and Doug think that the whole process, from the impact to the glass rain to the incineration of all of these species on the planet,
It would have taken a few hours.
His best guess, he thinks maybe 2 hours.
I mean, that's less time than a business lunch.
Yeah, you try getting east, north, west, anywhere on Mercer Street at rush hour in 2 hours, can't do that.
I mean, if you think about it, that is less time than you will spend in this theater tonight.
That means that you're saying that an animal that had been supreme on the planet for 200 million years disappears in a few hours completely?
Yes.
Yep. That's what the evidence suggests. That's right.
Well, you can consider the evidence, but also you could consider common sense. I mean, we've got a world filled with terrestrial dinosaurs. They were on every continent, they were even in Antarctica. And to say that they all disappeared in 2 hours, I mean, that suggests that there's none of them out of harm's way, none of them in a cave somewhere, none of them in a grotto, none of them in a protected forest of any kind. I mean, the word all in that connection is just too much. I just don't buy it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the truth is that the science is never going to be so exact as to say, yeah, all of them disappeared, or it happened on a single day or on an afternoon. I mean, no tool that we have is that precise. But what Jay is saying is that it happened fast, very fast, nothing made it through. What I find interesting is that ultimately, you don't need the ballistics or anything we've shown you so far to know that something major and sudden happened, because you can see evidence of it literally etched into the earth.
So, here's the spot where we first found the Kitty boundary.
You can see it really well out in Colorado, actually. We sent one of our producers, Molly Webster, out there to meet a paleontologist named Kirk Johnson. They hiked over a couple of hills. They found this one specific spot.
I'm like ready for a dinosaur to come around the corner.
And
Any minute.
they started to dig.
We were digging down like a foot at this point from where we were.
Turns out, for every 3 feet, you go down 10,000 years in time.
See, the earth has layers, kind of like a tree has rings. And every 3 feet down you go, you're going back in time about 10,000 years. And when you go all the way down, all the way back to 66.09 million years, you will find this one little skinny strip of rock.
Okay.
That's the Kitty boundary.
That.
This one skinny gray line.
This gray, crappy.
Oh, that.
This.
Now, in a very real way, that line that you're seeing, that represents the day the asteroid hit. The day. And just above that line,
That's a little bit after the day,
and just below that line,
is a little bit before the day.
the line is called the KT boundary. And what's cool is you can actually touch it. You can touch evidence of that moment. And in fact, Kirk, what he did that day was he took his finger and he dug a piece out and he handed it to Molly.
I'm holding
You're
the
holding.
KT.
You were holding the KT boundary.
It's like, it's almost like chunks of coal.
Yeah, but it's not. What you're holding is a dark gray mudstone. It's a carbon-rich mudstone.
And in that mudstone, you'll find all kinds of things. I mean, you'll find very rare minerals like iridium that probably came in on the asteroid and got smushed into that line. Those little glass balls I was talking about, those little hell balls, well, if you get out a microscope and you look at that rock, you will see them in there. They're all in that line.
How thick do you think that line is?
It's about an inch.
Is like hidden in there is sort of the story of that day.
Absolutely.
And here's the crazy thing. If this is the line right here, this little strip here, and then you dig just below the line, you are going to find over and over again dinosaurs everywhere. I mean, they're not going to be alive, of course, so I'm giving them a certain amount of energy, which I shouldn't, but they're fossils. And you will find dinosaur fossils from Europe and Idaho and Montana. This one says it was made in China. But if you just go above the line, you don't find any dinosaurs. So below the line, scientists have looked everywhere above the line. And they haven't, well, everywhere they have looked anyway, they found nothing, nothing, nothing.
It's a different world. That's the amazing thing. It's a different world. And it's pretty rare you can go, this is one world, and that's another world.
So you're literally just pointing pinky to pointer finger spread.
Yeah.
I was feeling that one. All right, so let's just talk about the next question that got us kind of interested. This is sort of the obvious next question, which is what made it through and how?
Well, we did ask scientists that question, and here is what they told us. If on that day you were a creature in the ocean and you happened to be within 300 feet of the water surface, so if you imagine this room filled with ocean water, we're talking about you guys up in the balcony. Up there, it will not surprise you to learn you don't do very well. There's a certain amount of heat, and mostly there's acid rain pouring in, so a lot of you will die. But down with the higher paying seats, if you're below 300 feet, and this always happens to people with the better, anyway, you do fine. And on land, it turns out,
Plain, ordinary dirt is a very good insulator. If you've got 1,200 degrees on the surface, then about 3-4 inches down, you would be comfortable there for several hours.
Oh, just a couple inches.
You only need a few inches.
so that means you could be a little worm, and if you squiggle down, you're okay. You could be a beetle squiggling down, you're okay. You could be a dinosaur tending to an underground nest, and if the nest is far enough below the ground, and a lot of them were, then the babies that hatch will have babies that hatch will have babies that hatch. We will call their babies years later birds. And if you're an early version of a crocodile and you bury yourself deep enough into the mud, you also get through, as do the plants, roots, and many of a lot gets through, actually.
And that actually brings us to what I find to be one of the coolest parts of the story. This is the part that involves all of us in this room. So it turns out on that day, as the fire was raging above on the surface, somewhere in a little hole in the ground happened to be a furry little animal that has the distinction of being the great, 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 great,
Great,
great,
great,
great,
great,
great,
great,
great, great,
great,
great, great, great, great, great,
great,
great,
great,
great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, great, etc. Grandma of everybody in this room. It is true, there was a creature down there. There was a creature down there.
I thought we should stop there because we were getting away with something and I didn't want to push it too far.
All of a sudden, it was just you and me.
Yeah, though.
There was a creature down there in a little hole, and when the dinosaurs got cleared away, this creature could step out of her hole, she could step out of her niche, she had more food, more places to roam, she could populate the planet, ushering in the age of mammals, and now here we all are in Seattle.
Oh, don't flatter yourself. It's not a straight line.
It's a wiggly line.
It's a wiggly line.
But here's the problem. We've never known anything about this animal that gave rise to all of us. We've never known what she looked like. We've never known, how she spent her days. We've never known anything because we've had no fossils of her. But recently, actually literally as we were reporting this story, right in the middle of our reporting, a team of scientists led by a woman named Maureen O'Leary, who is herself a mammal, she took fossils that we do have, fossils of this creature's descendants, and then using fancy algorithms was able to cross-reference the traits to work her way back for the first time to a composite picture of what we think our great-great-grandma looked like. So now, Seattle, a Radiolab exclusive, we present to you our great, 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 etc. grandma!
All right, well, this is what she looked like, and I want to just point out a few features about this enticing animal. First of all, the scientists have pointed out she has very fleshy ears. I'm not sure why that's important, but they do think so. They find that her pale underbelly is worth mentioning. It's soft and very, very nice to stroke. Could you just show them your profile, just the profile of your, thank you. It's either rat-like or crocodilian, you choose, but it does feature big, beautiful, beady black eyes, a fleshy pink nose, and especially a nice, could you show them your teeth? Just let them see. These are teeth that can tear flesh or tear lettuce. She is an omnivore.
But here was the issue, at least initially. When we asked Maureen, we were like, she's the scientist who did this work. We said, okay, look, we have this image of this creature for the first time. That's amazing. What do we call her? What is her name? This was Maureen's response.
Its official name is the hypothetical placental mammal.
What kind of a name is
I'm
that?
suddenly feeling bad for this little creature.
Well, it's not something that we thought of as we were sort of busily working on the paper.
But then a funny thing happened. Our producer, Molly, was talking to Maureen, and she was saying, gee, this is such an awful name.
And Maureen says to Molly, well, you could name it.
And Molly says to Maureen, wait, are you serious?
And Maureen says to Molly, I don't know. Are you serious? So, we're like, hell yeah, we're serious. Let's crowdsource this, right? This is what mammals do these days, we crowdsource. I mean, think of this opportunity. A little radio show gets to name the ancestor of us all. So we put out the call to the internet. We got 1,000 submissions in response. Great names, like Placentor.
Placentor.
First. F-U-R-S-T, Nova.
N-O-V-A.
And after 8 rounds of voting, the winning name was... Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Schrödinger. I can't even describe what a dark night of the soul this was for the staff. I mean, this whole experience made us wonder, should we have died in that asteroid? Do we deserve to be here?
So, if you're asking yourself what is the moral of our story, here's what we've shown you. We have a big, mighty species that died, and then a smaller species, which is you and I, we take its place. So you've gotten death and you've gotten resurrection, and you got it maybe in a single afternoon, so that's the argument we're making here. This is Jay Malash's argument that it was boom, over.
I mean, it is the suddenness of the whole over that is kind of unimaginable. I mean, like, there you are one day, you have evolved over millions of years to be this long-necked, beautiful creature, 70 feet from your nose to your ass. And tail. And then in an afternoon, like on one Tuesday afternoon, suddenly everyone you knew, gone?
200 million years out like a candle. Life will bounce back, of course, it always does, but you don't.
No, you can't. You know, everything you were have been erased.
Except for this, that millions of years later, when the mammals that replace you find your bones buried in some rocks and they reconstruct you and draw pictures of you, then the littlest mammals, in the form of 3-year-old boys and girls, they start to dream about you. And they get frightened by you. And in their way, they bring you back because in their heads, you are huge again.
You are powerful again.
And you're adorable again.
You're sometimes scary again.
Always majestic.
But then those kids grow up.
You go to school.
They visit museums where you're a fossil.
And when you're a fossil, let's face it, you must be dead again. And that's your fate. You were killed on a real afternoon 66 million years ago.
And then, in a way, you were killed over and over and over and over again in those years between ages 3 and 13.
So dinosaurs never stop dying.
But on the other hand, they're always here.